Here we have a problem on derivative. So that is, we have to find the derivative of the given function, and also we have to give the domain of the derivative. Okay, so finding the derivative of this function is pretty simple. You just have to use the power rule of derivative. So because here this term is in the form of x to the nth power. So whenever I want to find the derivative of some stuff which is in the form of x to the nth power, so what I need to do is I have to bring this exponent in front of x and subtract 1 from the exponent. Then I'll be getting n times x to the power n negative 1. So this is the power rule of derivative. So the same thing I can do over here in this function. So f prime of x equals to, so f of x is given, f prime of x means it's a derivative of f of x. So I have to bring this exponent 3/5 in front of x and subtract 1 from the exponent. Okay, so I have completed derivative for this stuff, and so here it's a constant. The derivative of a constant is 0. Okay, now let's simplify. F prime of x equals to 3 over 5 times x to the power. Okay, now I have to simplify 3 over 5 negative 1. So here an integer is subtracted from a fraction. So whenever an integer is added or subtracted from a fraction, and if I want to simplify, I have to multiply this integer part by the denominator of the fraction. Once I am done with this multiplication, I have to take this 5 as a common denominator. So let me do it. 3. So 1 times this 5 is going to be just 5. So 3 negative 5. Okay, now I have multiplied this integer 1 by 5. Now I can take this 5 as a common denominator. Okay, f prime of x equals to 3/5 times x to the power. So 3 negative 5 will become negative 2, and then we have 5 in denominator. Okay, here the exponent is negative. Usually when we are solving a particular math problem and we get a negative exponent, so we'll be converting into positive. So how can we convert this exponent to positive? So very simple, we just have to move this term to denominator. So when I move this term to denominator, it will become 3 over, already we have 5 in denominator. When this particular term is moved to denominator, then 5 times x to the power 2/5. So the negative exponent will become positive if the term x to the power negative 2/5 is moved to denominator. Okay, now I got the derivative of the given function, that is f prime of x equals to 3 over 5 times x to the power 2/5. Okay, apart from that, I have to answer one more question, that is I have to give the domain of the derivative. Okay, so the domain of the derivative means I have to find the values of x for which the derivative f prime of x is defined. So here there is a variable in denominator. So now I have to find out the value of x for which the denominator becomes 0. Because if the denominator becomes 0, then the value of the fraction becomes undefined. So the value of x for which the given function becomes undefined has to be excluded from the domain. So here, when I plug in x is equal to 0, 0 to the power 2/5 will become 0, 0 times 5 will become 0. So when x is equal to 0, so the denominator over here becomes 0, then the f prime of x becomes undefined. So we have to exclude this x is equal to 0 from the domain because it makes the first derivative f prime of x undefined. So it cannot be included, it has to be excluded from the domain. So the domain of the derivative is, domain of f prime of x is equal to all real numbers except 0. So except 0, we can consider all real numbers as a domain.